friends. What a great day to be talking water and wastewater, whether it's your first time tuning in or you listen and watch every day. Thank you for spending your time here with us. This is the Water Online Show, powered by Water Online, the leading online destination for the water and wastewater market. I'm your host, Travis Kennedy. And, as I was driving in this morning, I knew that I had this show episode that we were going to record here today. And I was thinking that over the past however many months, it seems like we as an industry have been talking about this particular subject forever. Although it hasn't been that long, it seems like forever. PFAS seems to be at the top, maybe top three terms in terms of topics as we talk about different things that affect the market and the industry. Now, there are a lot of reasons why PFAS is talked about a lot, but one in particular is just the sheer scope of what we're up against. So things like, how do we deal with forever chemicals in a timely manner, but also keep the high bar needed to treat them safely and efficiently? Sure, it all starts with testing and open communication with your constituents if you're a municipality or a water company. But what is also true is how to treat PFAS is at the forefront of any real desired outcome for water companies or munis across this great country. One of those companies leading the way in that regard is none other than BioLargo. And joining us today, we are very lucky to have him on the Water Online Hotline is Dennis Calvert, CEO of BioLargo. Dennis, thank you for dialing in and welcome to the Water Online Show.
Hey, thank you, Travis. It's really a pleasure to be here. And you're right. You're right on the cutting edge. We got a lot to share today about our thinking about PFAS. And so thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to dive in. And as I was going through this introduction to this episode and some of the thoughts that I was trying to organize this morning as I was sitting in a little bit of traffic coming in today, states specifically are most concerned as from what I've read and learned about funding for their programs. So there's a significant funding gap today that is increasing because of things like LCRI and PFAS. So, how federal funding for states shakes out of the budget debate is really anyone's guess. And now with the new administration coming in, it's even more up in the air. So I'm curious to get your thoughts and views on what changes, if any, to PFAS regulations are expected, whether that's both in terms of the science or budgeting. But what can we expect to perhaps change with the new administration coming in?
So we're supposed to talk about the future here.
Let's do that.
Little tricky. Well, we have some thoughts, right? So there's a couple. At one level, you'd say there's a good argument that the train has left the station on this one. Okay, that's a good argument. And I always ask the rhetorical question. If you're going to deliver drinking water, it better not have PFAS in it. Right?
Simple,
it's really simple that way, if you think that way.
In
but
theory.
It's not just drinking water.
Right.
It's a lot of other waters too, right? Groundwater, industrial water, municipal wastewater, leachate water coming out of the bottom of the landfill. And so there's so much really to focus on. And of course, our technology, we think we have a gap to fill in all those. We'll talk about that. And Lee Zeldin, coming in with the EPA, the EPA's mandate is to protect the citizens of the United States of America. And if you got something that's linked to cancer and birth defects, for God's sake, do something about it, right? It's again, so basic.
Yep.
And so, of course, how you do that is the trick, where you get the funding. So I know there's a lot of funding from litigation. Okay, that'll fill some of the gap. It also points out that not only do you have to get CapEx for the installation, but also the maintenance costs. Efficiency is one of the mandates, right, for the government, the new administration. Efficiency. And so being a low-cost provider, being a competitive CapEx provider is really critical as well. So in the aggregate, we look at it and say, there's more business than we can possibly serve.
Right.
So we don't worry about our business and that issue because there's so much. Okay. And then the macro level, you say, look, I think the right thing will be done. It's just a matter of time. And the train's left the station. It's not good. This stuff's not good. And it's all over the world. And they're testing polar ice caps and the rain cycle. And it's just unbelievable. And
isn't that amazing just how overarching and far reaching this problem is? It boggles the mind.
Well, yeah. And, one of our experts, Tanya Chandler, she always says, it's not all going to go away. It's a mission critical and military and fuels and coatings and microchips. My gosh. Right. And so all these big data centers and the manufacturing facilities that make all this stuff, they got PFAS everywhere. So, but what will happen is those people that are using that have to make sure that not the most dangerous ones are out of circulation if they can. And then also the controlled discharge, right? They've got to maintain the safety so that they don't have super concentrations because of course long-term exposure, super concentration, not good.
Right, without a doubt. We've actually experienced that here. The home office for Water Online, where this Water Online studio is in Horsham, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Willow Grove. And there was a Willow Grove Air Force Base that existed for I don't know how many decades.
Right.
And this is going back about 6, 7 years. There was a PFAS issue because on the Air Force Base, they would use firefighting foam as part of the drills. And that would then
Big issue.
exactly leach into the ground. And then it was part of the source water, but nobody really
The
knew
other
it
thing
because,
too,
yeah, go
you
ahead.
remember about this too on this topic is even if the regs are slow to adopt, the litigation is not going to be slow to adopt.
Hmm.
And so that's the thing is, so imagine if you're a politician, right? And you're going to stand up and say, oh, no, we're not going to enforce all this. Litigation is going to keep going
Yeah.
because the damage is done. And if the
Yeah.
damage is done, then you got to take action. So I think this is going to be a box that the politicians are going to have a hard time getting out of.
Agree.
I mean, how do you stand up and say, oh, no, we think PFAS is going to be okay? No, it's not.
Right. Yeah, we're going to put it in Flintstones vitamins next.
Yeah.
And but no, I will say that Horsham has done a great job at cleaning it up. They were at the forefront of this
Sure.
fight early on, so I'm really proud and happy of what Horsham's been able to do to address
Right
the
on.
issue. But it is a far-reaching issue and it affects almost everybody. I want to talk about your technology specifically and your solution,
Sure.
if we could for a minute. So, what is it about BioLargo's solution that really sort of sets it apart from
This is a great,
its ability
such a
to?
great, it's also a great innovation story, really.
Let's hear it.
We're an innovator,
I love
right?
stories.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, in your career, right, I always say, if you're going to do something, do it well, focus on high impact. It makes work not like work, right? It's just
Right.
you get to go do something you love. And so this is one of those stories. And I remember as PFAS really got in the headlines, we always look way out as a company. We look out 10 years and we say, how do we position ourselves to be a leader, a player in that field as it emerges? And so we've been fortunate to have the capital, the staying power, the diversity, all these things that allowed us to maintain this journey because we're just now at a commercial adoption phase. I mean, and it's taken almost 5 years. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and so what happens is our lead engineer, Randy Moore, who's been in the environmental engineering space for 30 years, right? So we got a whole team of people that have careers of solving big environmental problems. I
Well
mean,
experienced. Yeah.
well experienced. Randy says to me, he says, and he's a southern man out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He says, well, Dennis,
Love the
he
accent.
said, yeah, I know it's great. So the government put out a call for innovation years ago, about 5 years ago,
Right.
and the focus was on destruction technologies.
Mm.
And the idea was, what if you could do an in situ destruction? Downhole, groundwater, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Randy came to me and he says, I've been doing this a long time. He says, the problem is that when you look at the techniques for destruction, it's likely going to become a hazmat. And if it becomes a hazmat, then decentralized collection and destruction is going to be a real problem because
Mhm.
of compliance for the hazmat regs as it continues to get enforced. He
Yeah.
said, and that's been happening for 30 years. It's the way it works. He said, so I believe, this is Randy, he said, I believe
Mm.
the key is to be the most efficient collector in the market. And if you can be the most efficient collector and you can super concentrate, then you have a chance to destroy PFAS, break down the molecules, and that's easy. Now, you hear what I said? It's easy.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Right.
the trick is to concentrate it, not to
Yep.
destroy it. And so there are many techniques people are using for destruction. So, and we know those well. We've got our own. We like electrocoagulation, by the way. We cook it with electricity.
Yep.
But when we cook it, we're cooking, 2 pounds of waste, not 80,000 pounds of waste.
Right.
And so this
Big
super
difference. There's a big
concentration.
difference there. Yeah.
Well, and so then because it's such a small footprint, you can manage waste streams, you can transport, you can do all the things you need to do. You can even do it on site, depending on the regs, right? If the regulations allow it. So we've had some like government clients who say, I need chain of custody. I don't
Yeah.
want this stuff shipping all over the country. And we said, well, sure, we can actually collect it, concentrate it, roll in a mobile unit and destroy it on site. And then you've got your chain of custody and we can pull out. You don't have to install, especially when you're talking about 2 pounds versus 80,000 pounds, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing, it's this efficiency. And so a lot of technologies, and there's some wonderful, brilliant science out there, right? Okay. But they all going to struggle with a couple things. Ultra short chain molecules, big problem.
Yeah.
Some of the current systems, they're just going to slide right through. I mean, they're just not going to be a collector. The waste stream is a big deal, right? Um, and then this idea of achieving non-detect status on testing as well. So we've proven we can do non-detect. We can take it to a level you can't find it. And
That's
so that's
impressive.
unusual.
I don't
It
want to
is,
blow that
yeah.
move. That's real impressive.
And then we don't have huge, some of these other, and again, great technologies, but tough, right? Some of these technologies have never scaled up
Yeah.
in the world, pressure, extraordinary high pressure techniques are used, right? That are make sure and corrosion. Oh my goodness, be careful, right? And then
Right.
energy, extraordinary energy consumption to break that molecule, and you combine all those things, and really one of our value propositions is we think we can save between 440 and 300% for a customer over the life cycle of the treatment program, right? So let's say it's a 10 year journey, right?
Yeah.
300% is a big number.
Yeah. It certainly gets up in the upper echelon. And
So that goes back to efficiency. So our thesis really is be the most efficient collector.
yeah.
Uh, don't overcharge,
Yeah.
right? Provide value that has lasting value. Don't get rich on a single install. I mean, basic stuff that and of course we provide a performance guarantee behind the product. So we say, look, we'll guarantee it. And they go, well, how do you do that? And I'm like, it works.
That's right.
We know it works.
It's a guarantee. That's what a definition of a guarantee is.
And the trick in it, I don't know if you know the actual tech. What we're doing is we're migrating in an electrostatic field, right? So we get big electrodes, low energy, but there's an electric field, water flows through it, the PFAS migrates,
Yeah.
and then as it crosses across the surface, not through, no pressure drop, not through a membrane, across the surface of a membrane, the PFAS is selectively extracted. So what happens, all the other salts and the contaminants can go through the water. You don't have to remake the water. You just pull out the PFAS,
Yeah.
which is why we end up with a couple of pounds across a membrane. So then we do a membrane exchange, right? Let it go for about a year, come pick up the membrane, call off 2 pounds of waste, no problem. We can destroy it on site, no problem. We can take it back and destroy it. You can put it in a little suitcase. It's no.
That would be a good way to make a point, right? Just come back and put it in a suitcase and that's it.
Well, of course, we have an image, like 2 pounds versus, a tower of carbon, right?
Right.
So,
I mean, huge difference there. And I'm sure that you can have that mind image, and our listeners and viewers out there can certainly have that mind
well, the
image.
other two is, I think too, the other reason we think there's a number, it takes not just great tech to win, right? You know that. Sometimes the best tech doesn't win
True.
because you got politics and capital and time and people and all this stuff
All
have to
true.
come beside it. So part of our strategy really is and you look at our innovation cycle because we call ourselves an innovation engine, right? We're
Yeah.
inventing high impact focus is that we're really partner centric.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't need to go out and build 1,000-man team. I need to partner with someone who has 1,000-man team.
There you go.
And so
Yeah.
as a result, we're really innovating to help the industry make the change, not just us. And because we have such a diverse portfolio, we don't have to get rich on any single innovation. We can take the long road, the smaller margin, partner with big boys, and let
Yeah.
this technology go out and solve a problem for the world. And
Yeah.
see, that's what gets you up, right? You go, this is worthy of a
Yeah.
career, worthy of investment, and all that comes together to make this work.
Making an impact. And I mean, one of the things that you had said that really stuck out is I know that there's certain things that are very important to municipalities and water companies, in addition to the number one priority, which is to safely serving their constituents, right? And that is saving money and saving energy. So efficiency in energy consumption, and then also being able to work within a defined budget, because I've never come across an overfunded water company or municipality,
exactly.
right? I've never come across it. If you have, I'd love to hear about it. But those two things are important to note. I want to touch on, because you had mentioned this a couple of minutes ago, but I just want to touch on it real quick, if we could, about waste. So why is waste such a big deal when we're talking about PFAS treatment?
Well, yeah. So RCRA and CERCLA, right? That's what we're talking
Mhm.
about now. The regs are they're tightening, and of course that's one of the questions in hot debate whether passive receivers are going to be responsible, right? That concept,
Right.
passive receiver, that's like a landfill that ends up with a lot of PFAS, but they didn't create it, but it's
Yep.
in there, right? That's an issue. Wastewater treatment, same thing. Passive receivers, because PFAS can come from a lot of different things. It's
Hmm.
cosmetics and it's you know, pharmaceuticals and in your food products, and they end up in the
Yep.
waste stream. And here we go, circle, circle, circle. All right. So again, going back to this idea, don't kick the can down the road, really solve a problem so that once it's done, it's done. It's not coming back again, right? That's the idea. Anyway, the regs on handling, depending on how enforcement goes with some of those outliers, like a passive receiver,
Right.
it's just a question of time. I give you an example. We just done some trials in leachate. And
Hmm.
again, our technology can work in all different sorts of waters. That's also one of the value propositions of our thesis.
Right.
Why is that important? Because we're likely to get faster adoption in the non-drinking water markets.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, but that gives us the standing to do drinking water.
You're right.
In municipal, I always say we want to make this. We'd love, if in the perfect world, our customers to be business and engineering focused.
Right.
Because in a business and engineering focus, we win. Okay? In a
Right.
political decision,
Mhm.
right, where people are afraid to take early adopter status, they're just going to wait. And the EPA knew this when they came out with the first recommendations. They said, hey, we just got to get this stuff out of the water. You said, well, okay, well, what do we know? Well, we know carbon, we know ion exchange,
Yeah.
and hey, it can collect some PFAS and it can get it below the discharge limits, right? Okay, that's pretty good. Well, guess what? It's 80,000 pounds of waste, and it ain't going away.
Right.
And so that's the
Yep.
problem. That's
Yeah.
the problem. Anyway, back to that thesis. Anyway, so these regs about handling are really critical, and but even as they take more time,
Yeah.
right? The problem is still here, and it needs a business and an economic and an engineering solution. And
Hmm.
so again, we look at it and say, "Oh, that's just icing on the cake." The tighter the reg, probably more business we get, okay, faster. But eventually, we're going to get it anyway. You know
Yeah.
why? Because you need to get it out and you need to take care of it.
Yep.
Solve the problem. Don't kick it down the road. Don't send it off to the landfill so it's going to leach out and then end up again back in the wastewater treatment facility and come back in another, 2 years. I asked a hydrologist, on the water table, and I said, how long is it going to take this thing to get out of the water table? He goes,
Yeah.
it took 50 years to get there. It's going to take 50 years to get it out. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And,
Simple math.
really, there's even this whole genetic thing. It's like PFAS is being, interwoven in our DNA. I mean, it's
Right.
like, oh my gosh. And so we don't really, the negative implications are just now just barely being understood.
Right.
And so look, it goes back to this whole thing of solve a problem, take care of people, do the good thing, do the good deed, right? Anyway,
Yep.
pretty
Have
awesome.
a purpose. And I mean, speaking of tackling the problem now, because it's got to be done. I want to change the subject real quick to actual implementation of it. And we're going to go back to my motherland, New Jersey, right? So you announced a first project in New Jersey earlier this year. So
Yeah.
what's the status of that?
Yeah, so the machine is built and it's sitting in our warehouse ready to ship.
All right.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. And it
Yeah.
works. And it
Yep.
works. And we guarantee it.
Yep.
Uh, so of course this is public works. So a general contractor won the bid, and we
Hmm.
were kind of specified in with tight specs.
Yeah.
So that helps because people, once they know about you, they go, "Oh my gosh, we got it. We can do better." I
Yeah.
didn't know we could do. This is actually what we hear. We didn't know we could do better. I'm like, yeah, you can do better. You can do better than what you're doing.
Right.
So anyway, and then general contractor controls the build. So now it's winter in New Jersey, and they got to
Yeah.
lay plumbing and electrical and the
Oh
pad,
man.
all, and so we're waiting for the building. And
Right.
it's probably going to get pushed out. And of course, I wish it was faster because this
Right.
reference site is so important. But we did just get an agreement put together with the EPA to do collaborative testing and third-party validation for the technology with the EPA.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a big deal.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it's
I
not
appreciate.
fast,
Right. Well, what is right? Um,
but it's about as good as it gets.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Breaking news here on the Water Online Show. I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners. That's great. And so if we're looking ahead to the future, I mean, we started this conversation about like, all right, so let's look ahead to the future. Let's prognosticate here. This question does have to deal with the future, but you might have a little bit more of an idea because you're on the ground floor and have been there since the beginning, obviously. BioLargo's plan for expansion. What's the plan to reach further into the water market as we go through 2025 and into 2026?
Yeah. So, well, really it's all about credibility, right? I mean, if people knew you and they know they can trust you, right? That's how it
Right.
works.
Of
And
course.
you have to earn it. It takes you years to earn it and a minute to lose it.
That's truer words have never been spoken. Absolutely.
Be really careful. And that's the thing about, we have a deep bench in engineering. And one of the things I learned, so people often say we have a portfolio of companies, right? And one of them is a big engineering group,
Yeah.
and they're really skilled. They've been in the game 30 plus years. So I got a bunch of seniors, whole team, water engineers,
Yeah.
specialists. And people say, well, how do you run all this? I'm like, I don't run an engineering company. I got a CEO who runs the engineering, and he's a pro, and he's been doing it his whole career. And
Right.
so I don't pretend to be that, right, at
Yeah.
all. And so you have to listen to them, right? So engineers, I asked a question. I said, how do these big engineering companies, I said, when you see one blow up, what's up? How does this happen? How does a multi-billion-dollar deal crumble?
Right.
Really fascinating. And the senior engineer looked at me in the eye. He said somebody sold something they didn't know what they were selling,
Hmm.
and the CEO took a shortcut. It's like,
There's a,
okay, none of that. We will have none of that. That's the
right.
name of BioLargo. None of that ever.
Top two things on the list, shake them off. We're not going to do that.
Just be,
I like the approach.
and then you're in this world that requires this 99.9999 perfection. I mean, it's like you got to get it right.
Yeah.
So that's slow. That's the message. That's slow,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
one of the things that is unusual in our company is that we epitomize the ideal of achieving that level of performance. And when I mean we're perfect, right? It just means that's the target, and you pursue it every day. Okay. Now, why is this important? That's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So people say, "Well, have you gotten anything done?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Right? I mean, we're not sitting around twiddling our thumbs over here. And the
Right.
answer is that's the mark that we're after. And as you achieve it, and people know you achieve it, guess what? They want your technology.
There it is.
And
Yeah.
that's what's happening. And so what's the future look like? Well, we're going to get adoption. We're going to get big partners.
Yeah.
We're going to see it as a tool in the toolkit of practitioners all over the world. That's what's going to happen
Yeah.
because the world needs a good solution, and the most efficient collector wins.
Hmm.
That's us. We're the
Yeah.
most efficient collector.
So you're basically going to challenge Pitbull and try to go worldwide. BioLargo is, and
Yeah, I'm gonna break
and
out into
Dennis
rap
Calvert
and
is
get me
Mr.
going
Worldwide. I love it.
here.
But you'd mentioned something in that answer that I'm curious about an engineering company, right? So BioLargo, from what I understand, is more than just a water technology company. So what can you tell us about some of the other interesting
Yeah.
technology you have in your
Well,
stand?
it's funny
What
too.
do we got?
I mentioned we had this just so fortunate to have these leaders from industry join us over the last year or so.
Right.
Sally Gutierrez from the EPA, head of
Yep.
R&D, and Jeff Keitlinger from Metropolitan Water District just joined our board. And Larry Dick, he's a big Orange County 30-year water guy, right?
Yep.
Knows everybody. And it's funny because when we first started talking about water and micropollutants, actually is what brought us into the world. We said,
Hmm.
"Hey, we've got some solutions for micropollutants. It's really cool." And that's a destruction technique in a continuous flow, right? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Early in the adoption phase, right?
Right.
Hard to find market, but eventually micropollutants are going to get regulated as well.
No doubt about that. Mhm.
So I remember meeting Sally the first time. It's got to be 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, we're going to do this innovation in the water business because we've got a diverse portfolio of innovation. And she says, well, if you're going to innovate in the water business, you better have something else that's making money.
Well, she's an enigma. Yeah, she knows what's going on.
Right. And I'm telling you what, she's right.
Yeah.
And so again, why are we able to do this? Well, because we have other things that are making money.
Right.
And we don't have to get rich on a single install or, it's like the diversity allows you, right, to advance scientifically and from an engineering perspective so that you can hit that 99.999 mark, do the deal, provide the guarantee. Okay. So in our portfolio, we have a battery tech, which is really early in the innovation side. It's early in terms of its maturity. We have an odor control that's breaking records. This is poof, that
I love
product,
it.
that odor control.
Yep.
Industrial odor controls, very is a profitable side of our business, and we've been doing that for almost 11 years, right?
Right.
Industrial, so all the landfills and transfer stations, all that kind of work.
Yeah.
And then we have a medical company, which is an extension of one of our technologies, and that has now we've spent 13 years, invested almost $20 million, almost 20. It's unbelievable,
That's crazy.
and that's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot for us. That's like a career. And
Yeah.
here's the thing: each one of these assets is high impact, potentially disruptive for a market, right? And I say, we always say if we didn't think it could be the change agent, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
So that's our thesis, okay? And so as a portfolio company, we have this unusual ability to innovate on the margin and sustain ourselves through long adoption cycles.
Right.
And that's exactly what's happening with PFAS. It's the same basic model. And so, and same thing's happening in battery. A company said, we've got a working cell, right? So we just published working cells. So that's for long duration energy storage. That's the balancing the grid and offloading renewable energy. Big, big
Right.
market. There's a article in Forbes, actually The Economist, about a month ago, and the title is "Clean Energy's Next $1 Trillion Business: Long Duration Energy Storage." It's the wave of the
Wow.
future. Yeah.
Nice.
So we're going to be a player there. Why? Well, because we're ahead of the curve. We bought a technology, had 8 years of R&D before it. We then
Right.
pick up where they left off with this innovation engine that allows us to incrementally invest and innovate in a way that most companies can't. So what about your rent? Well, I already got that covered. What about your overhead? Oh, I got that covered.
Yeah.
Why? So while you're out there slaving away in the adoption cycle for PFAS and the very difficult water industry
Mm.
and lower margin, let's be real. You don't get rich in the water business.
Yeah.
You make some money, you take care of your investors, but this is not a fast, high margin, rocket ship. This is a slow, hardworking public service of high
Yep.
impact.
For the greater good. Yeah.
Well, so anyway, our company has such a diverse portfolio that we have this unusual ability to choose margin and degree of difficulty,
Yeah.
right?
That's
You want to
awesome.
do the bunny slope, the intermediate, or the
Yep.
quadruple diamond. Some of these are like quadruple diamonds, but
Right.
they're so important. And of course, the prize, if you can sustain yourself through that cycle, the prize is that much richer. I mean, it's so good, not just for the greater good and financially. And that's part of the thesis. You got to do all. You got to do all. You got to do it for people, good for the planet, good for money. It all needs to come together for a sustainable solution. And that's really where our company just shines. And it has taken a long time, you know. But when I look at these assets, in my heart of hearts, I know that each one of them is high impact and worth a career. And so there you go. That's
Without a doubt. I
how it
mean,
goes.
BioLargo seems to get it. I mean, that's when you talk about it's not just a try and get rich quick scheme. It's not about trying to solve all the world problems all at the same time. It is a patient approach to making the world a better place, starting
Yeah.
one project at a time.
And then don't hold on to your babies too tight.
True. Yep.
I
Yep.
tell it, we have inventors. We got a bunch of them now. We used to have
Yeah.
one. Now we got a whole crew. They're all in, and I always tell them, I said, if you hang on too tight, you might just die with that baby because you
Yeah.
can't do that. You have to let it go, right? Let it find its way into the marketplace with lots of people playing with your stuff.
Right.
And because if you can't do that, then you can't sustain yourself financially. And if you can't sustain yourself financially, you can't do your greater good. And so you got to have it, you got to have the combo. And then surround yourself with great people. We're really good at that. We got great people in the company. And these experts from industry, I'm always amazed and I feel so honored, right, to have them join us. And I can tell you why, because they want to make an impact for good.
You want to be part of something big and something good. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Well, I know that there's a big announcement coming out very soon from BioLargo. A little birdie told me, so I have some advanced news here. I get that sometimes here at the Water Online Show, and I know you're excited to let the market know and let our audience know. So if you would be so kind as to let the Water Online Show audience know exactly what I'm referring to, what is the big news that's going to be coming down the pike and made public in about a week or so?
Yeah, it's a humbling honor. I received a letter from the Secretary of Commerce that myself,
Yeah.
on behalf of our company, had been appointed by the Secretary of Commerce to the Environmental Technology Trade Advisory Committee.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is
which is pretty cool.
fantastic.
Yeah.
How awesome is that, Dennis? That's fantastic.
It's really, it is. And it took me a minute to get my head around it, right? It's like, okay, what does this mean? And of course, what they want is the feet on the street, on the front line, talking about innovation and talking about solving big problems and the international trade component, right? So
Right.
it's a big deal. And so a couple of things it really means. It means I'll get to meet leaders from all over the country
Yeah.
who are on the cutting edge, like us. That's cool. And
Yeah.
then it gives us entree all over the world to now introduce our technology, create a global market. And so we think it's important, and it's humbling, right? We get to do something again worthy, and so yeah, I'm really thankful. And of course, I can't really take all the credit personally. The reality is the PFAS solution was the sweet spot, and
Yeah.
it got me there. And
Yeah.
so now we get to go out and put it to work.
Yeah, no doubt. Team win. And it's opening a lot of doors for BioLargo just as a business and as a solution. The
Yeah,
fact that you are going to be part of that leadership
yeah,
advisory. So
yeah,
that is big news, and I'm glad that you were able to sort of let us break it here on the Water Online Show.
yeah. Right on. Pretty cool.
How would a water company, municipality, anybody that's interested in hearing more, how would they be able to reach out to BioLargo, get more information, have a good conversation? Where to start?
I think you go to Water Online, brother.
That's a great place. We'll take it. Yes,
I think there's a
absolutely.
lot of, yeah, we got a lot of information there, and again, it's one of those tools. You guys have created a tool that for companies like ours is just gold. It's golden because it's too big a world. You don't have that kind of budget. You got to go right to the target where people are tuned in and listening. Yeah. Well, look, you guys have created a resource where people can tune in and be right on the cutting edge of information. And for a company like ours, there's not enough time, not enough money to recreate that on your own. You just can't do it. So this idea of a targeted approach where you can get all the information all in one place with credibility, I'd go to Water Online.
We appreciate that shout out. Would your website be a good place for them to also come to get BioLargo specific information?
Yeah, and we have a dedicated site called bestpfastreatment.com.
Oh, I love it. Say that again so our listeners and viewers can write it down.
Bestpfastreatment.com.
Bestpfastreatment.com. It doesn't get any more simpler, easy to remember. I love it.
And BioLargo, of course, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot going on with the company, watch it, do a deep dive, you'll love it. The more you know, you'll love it.
You hear that, everybody? Go ahead, do a deep dive, learn more about BioLargo. They are at the forefront of innovation and making the world a better place. And we are so happy to have them part of the Water Online family, part of the Water Online universe. Dennis Calvert, CEO of BioLargo, thank you very much for spending your time here with us today.
Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate that. And all of you out there, thank you for spending your time here with us. And we cannot wait to welcome you back to the Water Online Show. And we will talk to you and see you next time.